slightly older girls that are doing this lace, making lace, you know?
Bobbin lace.
Yeah. How do you call it?
Bobbin.
Bobbin lace.
The thread is wound around a bobbin.
Bobbin.
And
Yeah, and they have all these.
they flip it.
Yeah, it's very complicated.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff that it's really old paintings. They're fancy, rich, important people. They have these like collars, you know. That's also lace with a lot of stiffener in it.
Yeah.
Now there's a story how people of Bruges started to make lace. Because the chocolate is just from the colonies, and everyone who didn't want to work on the chocolate farm got their hands chopped off in good old days.
Threw them in the sea.
Threw them in the sea. And then the horse ate them.
And the four brothers.
Didn't have no more water.
There was a mermaid.
But
And the dog.
long time ago, in Bruges, there was a girl called Serena.
Here we go.
Serena. Next to the church is a lace shop. Probably all from Asia, but the shop is called Serena. Next to the shop is a house with a Mary statue. Of course. Yeah. Also Bruges is a bit littered with Mary. And the Serena is sort of the big innovator in the lace industry in Bruges. So what happened? She lived with her, well, she was one of the, let's say, 5 daughters of a couple that lived in Bruges. They were very poor, hard-working people, didn't have enough money, economy was bad. So they had a hard time, and all the sisters had to work somewhere, selling chocolates, doing guided bike tours just to make the amount of money to survive for the family. They had to share everything. And also the oldest daughter was Serena, and life was getting so hard for her that she fell on her knees for this Mary statue. Mary, anything. I give up all the pleasures of my life. I don't need anything in my life. Just let the family be good and let us earn some money. And Mary said, "Aha, you made a promise." He said yes. So that was a very holy moment.
Holy moment.
Nothing really happened after that. So she was like, okay. Nothing happened. So she went for a walk in the park where the tulips were that we walked yesterday.
Nice. Very pretty.
Very pretty. She was walking there with an old school friend. His name was Richie. They knew each other really well from school, but there was never anything in between them. It was just good friends, like a brother and sisters kind of stuff. Then she was walking with him, and she was like, "Oh, Richie, we have such a hard time in my family." Richie was, "Yeah, we have the same hard time." But she didn't tell anything about her promise that she made to Mary. So they were sitting in the park on the bench, and she had this, a little bit like the nuns. They had, but the girls used to have this little sort of cotton, yeah. So you'd say a bit like this. So she was sitting there.
If you go to the side, you might look.
Yeah, we also have a hard time and life is bad. Tulips are dying. Came too early in Keukenhof, there was no tulips. And suddenly she felt all these like things itching on her head. And she looked up and also Richie. That was just a random name. Right? Actually, I don't remember what his name was. What was called? Peter. All these little Peter. But then which Peter? So there's all these things coming down from the tree above them, and there was all tiny little spiders, and they were like really working really hard to make a sort of a web, but they did it all together. And then the spiders disappeared again, but the web was still there. So she took off her little, how do you call this?
Cap.
Cowboy hat.
Bonnet.
She took off her orange cowboy hat. Was the common headdress for girls. And she looked together with Peter, and they looked, wow, this whole complicated patterns. They saw flowers and birds and trees and boats and bicycles. Wow, what those spiders did, I wish we could do it ourselves. So yeah, they couldn't just take it off, but they took some little sticks and they tried to attach the web to it and brought it home. And then they started to study how the spiders made it, and they were trying with little threads to make sort of the same patterns and figures. And it worked out, and then Peter also said like, maybe if you use little sticks and you put the thread around it, then we can make the same patterns. And that worked out, and she got better and better with this. And then a rich merchant came and he saw what she was doing there on the street. She was making a bicycle, like sort of primitive lace. And he was like, wow, I'll give you 5,000 euros for that. Take it, please. And then she was like, so we can make some money with this. So she taught all her sisters to do the same. And they were getting better and better at it. And the family was doing better. They earned lots of money. And she was, money doesn't make you happy, but stuff was doing better. They could buy their chocolates in the weekend. They climbed the belfry once a week, enjoyed the view, went to a museum. They were quite happy.
Yeah, she's gonna die. She's definitely gonna die.
Yeah, she's gonna fall off the balcony.
When they met the four brothers and drowned in the river.
One thing you learn when you work with people or tourists, that the first and the last day you have to give them a good feeling. Between it doesn't matter, but the story's not finished yet. So, it's all about a year after she discovered together with Peter these patterns. She went walking by herself. Should I? No, let's. I'm missing one. Okay. Rewind a little bit. Rewind. So her life was doing really well. She went to the belfry and everything. And her friend Peter, which was not her boyfriend, but just a good friend, also saw she was doing better, and she was smiling more, so she was getting more attractive because of that. And he knew her for a long time. So one day he said, Serena, why don't you just marry me? We could be so happy together. And she was, I like you, but I cannot do it. And he's like, women, why? I really like you, but no. And she put her hat on and she walked away. So there was one important thing I missed. So then about 1 year later, she sort of thought back about the bad times in the family and how it was all solved by those spiders and making the lace with her sisters. She went for a walk in the same park, sort of a sentimental moment. And she sat down under the same tree. Actually, Peter followed her because he saw her leaving to the same park on 1 year later, this special day. And then he was hiding in the bush. He didn't know anything about it, but it's part of the story. That otherwise, I cannot explain that he was close by. So he was somewhere in the bush. She was sitting there again. She had her orange cowboy hat on again. And she was thinking about how good life suddenly became. And she felt these things again. And she looked up, oh! An army of spiders was falling out of the tree and they were like making patterns again. And when the spiders moved up, she looked what they made. And it said like, no, first some birds and bees and flowers, tulip. And then her name's Serena. She's like, oh, how nice. And then it says like, I'll free you from your promise. And she saw it and she started crying. Because it's quite hard to make a promise like this, you know, no happiness for the rest of your life. In exchange for some lace. So she was crying, and then Peter, who was in the bush looking at her, and was like, oh, it's the second time I see her hair without the hat on. But he was very concerned, so he jumped out of the bush. Serena, what's wrong with you? You're crying. And she showed the piece of spider web. Do you want to marry me? And he said yes. And they lived happily after.